We talked about two playoff teams. We've got another here in the Rams going up against the New York Giants. Now, the Rams have kind of been the surprise, should we say, for fantasy football this year. We obviously seen Kyren Williams go undrafted in most redraft leagues. The same with Puka Nacua. Are they going to carry your teams to the playoffs and then help you win a title with a juicy matchup this week? Or do you think there's potential they could disappoint?
So earlier today, I was on the RotoViz podcast with Sean Siegel and Colm Kelly, and we were talking about teams that we all have in the FFPC Superflex Best Ball Final. And the one player who we were all talking about being a real worry to us and concern is Kyren Williams. None of us have Kyren Williams on our teams. And this matchup, the Giants, they allow the 11th most fantasy points to running backs. They rank 27th in run defense DVOA. They've allowed 7 top 7 finishes this year. Kyren, he's rushed for over 100 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. It just feels really difficult to see how a team that are allowing 4.6 yards per carry to running backs are suddenly going to stop Kyren Williams, who's been playing fantastic. So, yeah, as somebody with no Kyren Williams at this stage in the fantasy season, I think I'll end up playing a decent amount of Kyren Williams in DFS this week in the hope that something offsets. In terms of the pass catches, this is very straightforward. Cooper Kupp has been balling. He's had 22 catches in the last 3 games. He's been the wide receiver 4, 5, and then wide receiver 36, which was a bit disappointing. Nacua, wide receiver 3 last week. He's had 7 targets in every single game this year. And then on the other side, the only player I really want to play, if I'm taking an absolute dart throw in DFS, is Darren Waller, because the Rams will have the 6th most fantasy points to the tight end position. Darren Waller's come back and had 11 targets in his last 2 games. Saquon, in redraft or Dynasty, if you've made a final with him on your roster, okay, you can play him. But the Rams will have the 3rd fewest running back fantasy points, the 2nd fewest receiving yards to the position. That's just not a play that I'm going to be chasing in DFS this week. But yeah, I think you can look at Matthew Stafford double stacks in DFS with one of the pass catchers as well as Kyren Williams, or both the pass catchers, and then fade Kyren Williams. The Giants, they allowed both Derek Carr and Jalen Hurts to score 20-plus points in the last 2 weeks, so you should feel very good about Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, and you talked about Kyren Williams at the top there. He's running back 2 for me this week. I think if you've got him, you can't get away from him. I know you don't want to hear that. I feel like I'm twisting the knife in. But he's been phenomenal this year. And I think you saw it a couple of weeks ago when, despite the 2 fumbles, still getting over 30 touches in that game. The Rams are going to continue to ride him. And I think that little injury spell away in the middle of the year, it's almost giving him that freshness as we see down this playoff stretch that's really helping you right now. Of the Giants receivers, now I'm intrigued if we're talking about potential double stacks with Stafford. Of a bring back, you mentioned Waller. If you're looking at one of the wide receivers, now we've got Wan'Dale Robinson, who is the kind of after the catch gadget player, a lot of slot work. We've got Slayton, who is your kind of X outside. Jalen Hyatt's flashed a couple of times. Any interest in any of them as a potential bring back this week?
Yeah, I don't hate the Hyatt show. I think that, it's tricky because it's Tyrod Taylor now there as the quarterback. It's not Tommy DeVito. And so much of what we've seen over the last few weeks was with Tommy DeVito. Jalen Hyatt definitely has flashed greater ceiling than most of the Giants wide receivers. He's had 109 yards a few weeks ago on only 5 catches. That's the kind of player who we want. If you go back to week 7, he had 2 catches for 75 yards. So he can change the outcomes very quickly. I just think when I look at this game, the Rams, they've been fairly good on offense and defense all year. They've allowed the 13th most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. So it's not a big weakness, but it's not necessarily a strength either. But I struggle to see the Giants offensive line coping with the Rams defensive line. I think that mismatch is going to be where this game's absolutely won. And Tyrod Taylor's probably going to have to get out and show us what he's got left in the tank with his legs.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, though. We're talking about who's going to be the wide receiver. you mentioned Tommy DeVito. He was 43rd of 46 quarterbacks in average depth of target at 6.7 yards. Tyrod Taylor, through his 100 dropbacks this year, is at 9. So he's 7th of those 46 quarterbacks. So he is pushing the ball downfield more, which maybe gives that, Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton more of an opportunity than someone like Wan'Dale Robinson. Before we move on to our next matchup, help us with our goal. Tom and I sat down and we said we want to hit 1,500 subscribers by the end of the season. We are so close. We are so close. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, go ahead, do so. Let's click subscribe right now. We have got so much planned for the off season. Do it now and it will help you later.